Welcome to the DPS 101 podcast. This is the podcast version of the DPS 101 Community Leadership course, which gives members of our community a chance to learn directly from cabinet-level leaders in Denver Public Schools and to get a behind-the-scenes look at how a school district operates, as well as a lesson in leadership. I'm Nicole Brady, Communications and Community Engagement Manager for DPS, and my guest today for episode 4 is Bill Good, Chief of Communications for DPS, and my boss. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
Great start for me today because I got here late. I thought, at least he'll understand. I was out doing a video, a story.
You're doing actually important stuff, not talking to me. This part is not important.
So we'll get to what I do and what the team does in communications in a few moments here. But first off, Bill, one of the goals of the DPS 101 leadership course is to let the community know who are the leaders in DPS. These are the people working closest with the superintendent every day, and you're one of them. So tell us a little bit about your own background and how you got here.
Sure. So I've been in Denver now for about 4 years, the city of Denver. Been here in DPS for about 3.5. I've been in this current role as the chief of comms for about almost 3 full years. And so before that, I was in school communications in the state of Michigan, a small district called Ferndale Schools, which is just north of Detroit. Was there for about a decade. Prior to that, I was in the Army, both as a soldier and a civilian, doing strategic communications for the Army. And then, now I've been here for about 4 years. So my background has been strictly, communications in public service in one way or another.
Right. Always in the public sector like that, and for a long time in education specifically. So like many companies, the communications team at DPS is sort of telling the story of our organization. You're in charge of making sure people trust the district, that making sure our leaders are credible. Talk about what that looks for you and for the team.
Well, I like to tell our team that we have the best job in Denver Public Schools, right? Like how cool is it that it's our job to tell the amazing stories of people that are in DPS every day. We have almost 90,000 students, over 16,000 employees, 200 buildings. So there's always amazing things going on. There's always amazing stories to tell. And like I said, I feel incredibly fortunate that we're part of the team that gets to do that. A lot of people don't realize the size and the scope of Denver Public Schools.
Right.
10% of the students in Colorado attend Denver Public Schools.
Wow.
Like that, when you think about it at that scale, we're like the second largest employer in the state, or at least in Denver County. And so, we're just the size and scale of Denver Public Schools is just astronomical. I think we drive millions of miles, like our buses, every year, right? Like I forget what the exact number is, but the scale of stuff is just staggering. And so I think one of the things that I try to do with communications is help folks understand that, right? Because the average person, they just want their kid to go to school, get a good education, and then move on and do great things in life. And so when there's a kind of a kink in the hose, so to speak, and something doesn't work out exactly the way you want it to, there's a lot of reasons why that can happen sometimes, and it's because of the complexity of our system, right? It's not something that's easily fixed. And in a smaller school district, if something's wrong, it's really easy to pick up the phone because everybody knows each other and getting it fixed. When you're talking about a behemoth like Denver Public Schools, one little small issue in one school becomes much more difficult to solve because we're trying to solve things at scale, not necessarily at that microscopic level, which takes a little bit longer to dig in. And so, just trying to tell the amazing stories is, you mentioned, building trust, right? Like at our core, that's what we're doing. And that really requires a high level of transparency, honesty, and just letting people know and letting people see, behind the curtain and things that are going on in Denver Public Schools.
Every part of your team contributes to that ultimate goal. And I think even though the district is so huge, we do have a pretty robust communications team that I think this podcast today will help people understand the different roles. So it's divided into 4 teams, actually: external communications, internal communications, multilingual, and marketing.
Yep.
Want to start with external because I think this is the part that people maybe see the most. A lot of that is media relations. It's the website. It's our social media. It's everything that anyone in the public could really see and observe from DPS. And you've developed somewhat of a unique approach to that with pitching stories about the district directly to the media, with handling crisis communications in a responsive way kind of tell me all the roles that external comms has there.
I think you just did.
I guess since I'm on the external comms team, that is my one area.
That's right. No, but
some expertise.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the big thing with external communications is anything that is an external audience, right? So when we say external, I mean anything external to DPS, right? So community members, families, students. Any touch points that they have with the district are essentially external communications. And again, it goes back to, transparency. If you want to build trust with the community, you have to be transparent. You have to be honest. My approach with anything is really simple. I think often in communications, we kind of overcomplicate things. And so when we do something great, we want to tell the public about it because it's their district, it's their tax dollars that fund us. So they have a right to know the good stuff that's going on. When bad things happen, which they ultimately always will, especially when you have 16,000 employees, 90,000 students, stuff's going to go wrong. And it's just important to acknowledge it, explain why it happened so everybody understands the reasoning behind it, apologize, and then explain the process how we're going to go about fixing things so that doesn't happen again. And again, but you have to be transparent, but that's how you build trust with the community. And external communications is, probably our most important, avenue that we have for that.
Yeah, DPS ends up in the news media quite a bit. Yep. So you guys are constantly fielding calls with reporters as well as really trying to shine a positive light on the district. And I would say mostly you see positive stories in the media about DPS.
And today, Denver Public Schools held a very special event to welcome more than 400 new educators.
Students in Denver Public Schools will learn how to combine the arts with business.
A program at Denver Public Schools is offering a different solution to some of the district's most vulnerable students.
I really give credit to our media manager, Stephanie Eastland, for that. One of the things that I purposely did when we hired Stephanie was to say, okay, Scott Pribble, our director of external communications, you're going to do the crisis comms, you're going to do the bad stories. And Stephanie, I just want you to focus on going out, finding the best stuff you can, and then pitching it to media. And I think that's one of the reasons we've been successful is we've been able to separate that where Stephanie just lives with the cool stuff, and poor Scott is just dealing with the difficult stuff. But I think it allows her to be in the correct headspace to be telling good stories constantly.
Absolutely. And the media does want to hear those positive stories as well. People want to hear those positive stories. I'll just remind people I came from a broadcast media, news media background, and one of the things you heard all the time was your news is too negative. So they absolutely want accountability for Denver Public Schools and for every other institution they interact with, but they also want to hear about good things going on, and those are the stories that do the best, to be honest. So she's really, Stephanie has really succeeded with that program. Of course, it's not just the news media in external communications, it's social media, which is not new anymore, but telling our own story through the district's pages, the YouTube page, the website, Instagram and Facebook, and putting our own videos out there. That's a big part of the job now, too. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's really allowed us to have a lot more tools in our toolbox for how to tell stories, right? When I first started in this industry, I was working for Berkeley Schools, the school I just graduated high school from right before I joined the Army. And everybody would come down and say, I want a 10-minute video for this. And he'd be like, yeah, but no one's going to watch a 10-minute video, right? Like, you don't really want a 10-minute video. But that was like the only thing you had, right? Well, now we have so many different avenues, right? Like if we can get a story pitched to the media and get them to pick up on it, cool. If not, we have our website where we can do long form content, short form content. We have YouTube where we can do videos. We have podcasts like this one now, and it's a video podcast and it's an audio podcast, right? We have social media where if it's just a funny clip or anecdote, it can go on, Instagram Reels or whatever. And so it really allows you, in the past, you'd be like, oh, that's a really cool thing. But like, how do I turn that into a 2-minute video? And I can't, so there's nothing to do with it, right? Where now there's a tool or an avenue for us to express whatever we're trying to express to the public. And that to me has been really the biggest change is we have a very creative team, and whatever they can come up with, we can figure out a way to get it out to the public in a really cool way.
Very cool. And yes, some stories, because there are reasons the media just can't cover something. One day there may be a fire somewhere and they just can't cover a great school story. And yet there are stories that have gone viral from Denver Public Schools' own social media accounts that otherwise the community would not have known about.
100%. Yeah, and I think that's the other thing too is, the media, one of the things I'll never forget that I was learning when I was in school studying this stuff, and one of my professors was like, well, if you just write a press release and like write it as the story, then some places will just publish that and put their own. I'm like, that won't happen. Sure enough, you get to your first job, you write it and people will just publish it, and they'll call you like, oh, do you have any pictures? Just send me a picture, And I think that happens a lot because it's really hard, as you know, as a reporter. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but like it's really hard to find those stories. And so if you can just go to a DPS website or Instagram or whatever and be like, oh, that's a great story. We just had a great one a couple weeks ago where we had this longtime resident knitting hats. She knits a hat for every kid in the school. I forget which school it's at, but it's like, holy moly. And as soon as Natalie, shout out to Natalie from our team, as soon as she showed me that, I'm like, oh yeah, you're going to get reporters calling you wanting to, and sure enough, it was out for like a day and we get 2 or 3 reporters reaching out wanting to do the story. And it's like, so it's a way to not only share that so that the public sees it regardless of whether or not it's on, Channel 7 or Channel 9 or whatever, but it also allows reporters to see that there's proof of concept behind something. Like that, oh, look at that's getting traction, now we can cover it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for letting me spend some time on external, the area that I work in and know a little more about. I want to get to the things that I don't know as much about. I want to get to Jacob Turner, who he's like his own department in communications. He's in charge of our website, but a lot of what he does really streamlines communications for the external team and the internal team. So that's why I kind of wanted to talk about communicating with the employees of DPS, with the teachers, and why that's such a big part of what the Office of Communications does.
Yeah, Jacob, love him. He really embodies the spirit that I try to bring to my own work as well. And it gets me into trouble a lot of times because one of the most common things I've heard in my career is, Bill, that's not your job, stay in your lane. And I always say, I have one big lane, and it is whatever organization I'm working for, whether it's the Army, DPS, Ferndale Schools, whatever. Because when you're in communications, you see all the issues, right? Because they're all brought to you because you're the one who has to go talk about them. And so if you see something, fix it. You don't just sit there and go, oh man, that really stinks. So somebody should fix that. And what I love about Jacob is his job is like this, and what he does is like this. Because he's the guy that when he sees something, he is not going to just sit there and go, man, that really stinks. He's going to come to me and say, Bill, we got to fix this. And it's like, great, man, go for it. How can I help? And I think that's why he's so beloved in our department, is because he does that, but he's not somebody who then takes it on and then drops it. Like, he takes it on and owns it and fixes it. And I think everybody really, really appreciates that.
Yeah, I think we had to shout him out by name because I think if you're a teacher listening or someone else in DPS, you probably know who he is. You've probably worked with him. He's probably fixed some issue for you, whether it's with our own ThrillShare app or communicating with your school.
And that's a great point, because like when we were rolling out ThrillShare last year, like Jacob was in charge of that. And if you had an issue, you could just pick up the phone and call Jacob, and he would tell you what to do and walk you through it and fix it. And it's like, who does that? Right? In a district of, again, 16,000 employees, 90,000 parents, if you had an issue, you could pick up the phone and talk to the guy who was running the whole program for DPS. One guy running this giant program with, again, a touch point to every person in the district. And he would sit there and talk to you on the phone for hours if that's what it took. And he didn't care. He was a little overwhelmed, right? Like, I don't want to sell, the stress of it short, but like, that's the kind of dedication he has. And that's what makes him such a cool dude.
Awesome. A great segue into the members of our internal comms team who are also really part of making sure communications to DPS employees are streamlined. And you mentioned this is a huge school district, with a huge employer with 14,000 employees. That's where internal comms really comes into play. Is that right?
So internal communications is anything that's internal facing. So primarily staff, teachers, custodians, food service, transportation, communications. And so what we really want to do is, our goal with internal communications is, again, to build trust. And you do that through transparency, regular communication, and transparency. And shout out to Selena Nakamura, who was just recently promoted to our executive director of communications. She's done a tremendous job. Our primary outreach method is newsletters. And if you look at our newsletter open rates, like it's absolutely incredible, right? Like the industry standard is, 45, 50%, and she's in the 80s with what her and her team do. And so that to me really says that the community sees value in it and they appreciate it. And again, they do a fantastic job.
Awesome. Engaging your employees on the internal side. Another part of communications is the multilingual team. this is a small team. I can look over and wave to the three of them there in the office, but this is such a demanding job with constant requests for translations and interpretations coming into them. Is that right?
Yeah, I would put them up against any team in DPS as far as the volume of work they do, the quality of work they do, and their dedication to what they do. So to give an example, let's say you have a new to country family and they need an interpreter because they have to have a meeting with the school, right? For whatever reason. There's a million reasons you could have to meet with the principal or something like that. Well, what happens is the principal will be like, oh, we got to have this emergency meeting tomorrow morning at 8:00. And by the time they get around to figuring out, oh yeah, I need an interpreter, they'll call us at 6:00 at night. And our folks will jump on the phone and then call our vendor who's going to do, if it's a language we have internally, and that person isn't already scheduled somewhere else, we'll send our own person. But if not, then they'll call a vendor, have somebody come in and be there and make sure they're there at 8:00. And they do this, I don't want to say 24/7, but darn near. And they're handling hundreds. Like every week we have our staff meeting, and they always start off their staff meeting, and I say interpretations and translations. And they're like, yeah, Bill, we got 400 requests this week. And it's like, I'm sorry, what?
And
it's
they're
crazy.
Translating documents.
Yep. Yeah. So interpretations is the in-person, right? So if you need someone you're meeting with a school, you're having an IEP meeting, you're doing something like that. You need somebody there. Translations is when you get an actual document, and then we'll translate it.
Wow. And we have languages that are under a consent decree that we're required to provide, but there could be others as well. Is that right?
Correct. So so the consent decree is with public facing documents. So if there's something that's essential for the community to know, we're required to put it on our website in the consent decree languages. There's 8 of them. Please don't ask me to name them.
No worries. Yes.
But if you, like, for example, Russian is not one of our languages. But if you're a family coming over from Russia and you need an interpreter, we will still provide that interpreter because it's important for you to make sure that you understand what a principal's saying so that you can, participate in your child's education.
I see. Wow. Well, it's understandable why that falls under the communications branch, because that is such a critical way to communicate with the public. We have many families in DPS who speak dozens, if not over 100, probably languages. Yeah.
It is our biggest, in the communications department, it's our biggest budgetary item. We spent over $2 million last year in interpretations and translations. And this year, we're going to surpass that. Since I've been in charge of the department 3 years, every year it has been an all-time high.
Wow.
And it's insane, the workload. And every time I tell them, hey, listen, when it slows down, take some time, it never slows down. Like there's that couple weeks in the summer, but then everything ramps up for the start of the year and getting things translated, and it's nuts. So yeah, they do an incredible job.
Hats off to that team. Well, the final of the 4 teams that we mentioned is marketing, which is also broken down into different sections. But really, one thing I think the public may not understand is that our marketing team has people who do marketing for schools specifically, and then they also have district marketing that they handle. Let's start with the schools. We have a unique program in DPS that helps individual schools tell their own stories.
So essentially what happens is if there's schools that have marketing or communications needs, right, they can sign up for a program, and they essentially pay 1/3. They split an employee 3 ways. So that employee will be in our office on Mondays and Fridays, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they'll spend 1 day in each one of the schools that they're assigned to.
Cool.
And then they'll spend those other 2 days, working on, side projects for them. So it goes a long way towards if schools need, a refresh of their website or newsletters or just branding around the school. It gives those schools an opportunity to not have to go out and hire someone or pay an outside contractor. They can actually have a dedicated DPS person that they split with 2 other schools to support them.
We have a lot of very creative people in communications. And another side that we're getting to use all of our talents on right now is the new DPS marketing campaign that launched this year. It's DPS Stories. Tell us about that campaign.
So when I first got in this role, one of the things that really surprised me is that we didn't have a marketing department. And we had declining enrollment, and we didn't have a marketing team. I mean, we had our school comm specialists that were considered marketing, but those are they kind of do everything. They're kind of a jack of all trades. And so that was one of the first big priorities I had, was we needed to stand up a marketing department. And my hat's off to Brittany Cowan, our director. She, when you look at the big citywide stuff, it's all her and, a bunch of other people doing things when they can, because we don't have, when we say we have a marketing department, we don't have people dedicated to doing the citywide campaign. right? We have a graphics team, but they do work for the entire district.
Got it.
We have our school comm specialists that are doing stuff for the schools. We don't have anybody other than Brittany just dedicated to the citywide stuff. So that's why, we lean on the entire communications team for content, right? And that's it's great because it helps out the marketing, but it also allows all the communications people to tell stories they want to tell, and they have passion projects, right? Because the best work you will ever get out of somebody is when they're really passionate and they really want to tell that story. And so to give everybody that on our team that opportunity to say, when you see something you really want to tell that story, go and do it. And then we can roll it up into this marketing campaign. It's really, really cool. When I finally got the green light from Dr. Marrero to do the campaign, I'd leaned down for a long time to say like, hey, you ready to go? You ready to go? You ready to go? And he finally said, yeah, okay, let me see what you got. I went to Brittany and I said, okay, we got a week to put something together. And I had kind of like told her when she first got in that role that like, this is where we're headed, so start thinking. But then when we finally got, like it was go time, we didn't have much time. And we had a meeting a week later, me, Brittany, and some other folks from the team. And she had 3 amazing ideas. We just happened to be, the lucky recipients of, 10 years of waiting for someone to ask, to do that. But the campaign itself is really cool. The, what we've done is you replace public in the middle with another P word. And we used to call it the P Stories campaign or the P word campaign. And that doesn't really work. So that's why, it's
DPS
the stories campaign, or DPS Stories now. So what's really hard about marketing a school district is it's really hard to find a universal unifying theme that appeals to everybody, right? DPS is such a big city. It's so diverse. So getting something that works cross-culturally, getting something that works cross-socioeconomically, it's really, really hard. And so what's great about this campaign is we have these 5 different words that we swap out public with, but it allows you to tell any kind of story and appeal to different types of people. And so, because that's the thing is we are a school district that has to be, essentially everything to everyone because we're a giant public school system. And so what we're really aiming for is to have that ability to tell any story that needs to be told or that can be told, to let everybody know that that there's a place for them in DPS, right? And so it's one thing to say, hey, place for everybody, everybody's welcome, versus showing everybody the amazing things that go on, and then they can go, I want to be like that kid, or I want to be like that staff member.
Yeah, the billboards are awesome. I love the visuals of this campaign. But and just to reiterate those P words. It's Denver passionate schools, Denver powerful schools, Denver proud schools, Denver personalized schools, and Denver prestigious schools.
Hey, you're better than me.
I nailed the 5 words.
Yeah, and the other thing we really wanted to do was to make sure that we had, because we have such a large Spanish-speaking population.
Yeah, we have.
And so if you're in certain areas where our predominantly Spanish-speaking folks in Denver live, that you'll see that in Spanish. And so they did a great job of getting, buses that are in those parts of town, getting billboards in that part of town so that when folks are there, they can see something in their own language and again, feel like they belong and they're actually invited to be part of DPS.
Almost every story you could tell within DPS is a story about passion or pride or somehow being feeling powerful as a student because you're getting to do something or having some opportunity at your school.
Absolutely.
So it hasn't been hard to find these stories. There's so much. I mean, I think passion's the one that just keeps coming into us all the time.
Yeah, and that's the thing is when you have, again, 16,000 employees, 90,000 students, there's an amazing thing happening every day in our school district. So it's just up to us to find it. Right? Like that. And so it's creating those relationships with the principals and the teachers that they know where to go to share those stories. They know what we're looking for. Because, and then what I tell teachers all the time when I talk to them, it's like, it may not seem like a huge thing, but like if that student accomplished something that they've been trying for a long time, let's celebrate it. Tell us about it. Maybe we can't figure out a way to cover it, but at least tell us about it so we're aware so that we can make that decision. And if we can figure it out, awesome. Like it doesn't have to be, hey, they got a perfect score on the SAT. That's awesome. Yeah. But it's also every student is working towards something. And when they accomplish something significant, that's worth celebration.
And there is a strategy behind doing this, though. It's about enrollment. We timed this to coincide with school choice season, and people are enrolling in schools. And so in a time when in a state in Colorado when you can go to any school you want to, if you're willing to drive there, it is important to tell people this is a great school right here and you should go here. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. And we've seen immediate results in our first round of school choice, because we launched this right before the first round of school choice. Like we got everything ready like maybe 3 weeks before school. Wow. And so you typically would want to launch well before that, so you have really good saturation prior to the actual event that you're trying to influence. But even with that, we've seen our most, in the school choice system, the most volume that we've had since the pandemic, the most external applications we've ever had in round one, meaning people from outside the district wanting to come in. And then we also had 250 applications from people who had left DPS and are wanting to come back. So, when you look at each one of those students being worth $10,000 to the bottom line of DPS, it's an incredible opportunity for us to really make a financial impact and keep some of our lower, enrolled schools open, and really make sure DPS stays sustainable financially.
I was just at Lake Middle School. I mean, they've added a couple hundred kids in 10 years from when they were seeing some really low numbers. And it shows that you can not just rewrite the story, but tell the story better of 100%. The district through a communications team and let people know there are great things happening in the district.
And as things, people are going to talk about our schools. It's just a matter, are we going to participate in that conversation? And are we going to tell our side? And I think for a long time here in Denver, there was a lot of talk about Denver public schools, but we weren't as aggressive in trying to tell our side of the story. And so, since I've been here, that's one of the things that I've really wanted to make sure, because, marketing is one part of it, right? But it's also about media relations. Media relations isn't marketing, but if we're getting more positive stories out in the community, if we're helping to minimize the impact of negative stories, like people have a better overall feeling about their public school system. And so all that works together.
And this drives student success because, we need money for one thing to run a school district. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's it. I mean, I think we have a harder time in communications of understanding the impact that we have to student success, right? Like it's really easy for a teacher to say, you're in front of the students every day. Yeah. So that you have a direct line into student success, right? Or a principal, or if you're a nutrition worker or transportation, right? Like you got to get the kids to school on time, more hours in the classroom, more time to learn, better scores. With communications, it's a little more, difficult to really think about. But at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're building that infrastructure of trust. And if that does not exist, then people will be looking to go elsewhere. They won't have that confidence in their school. They won't have that confidence in DPS. And if they don't have that and they're walking into DPS kind of not feeling great about it because of what they've seen on the news, that does impact, student achievement. And so the more we can build that trust, the more families can feel confident, the more students we come to DPS, the better we do financially, the more resources we have for students, the better everybody does.
Bill Good, Chief of Communications, thank you so much for joining us for DPS 101 and for giving the rest of the community here some insight into what we do all day. Yeah. I think I even learned something. So
hey, great. Yes. That's great. That's great. Yeah, and before we go, I want to give a shout out to Don and Beto. They hold the studio down. They never get that public praise. But every podcast, every studio shoot, everything you see that comes out of DPS, most of our videos, they're the two masterminds behind it. They do incredible work. And so you got to make sure that, while we're here visiting in their house, you got to make sure we give them the shout out.
I'm so glad you did. Yes, they are a critical part of the team that tells the great stories of DPS. So Don and Beto, thank you. And I wish we could shout out the whole team because they're the only ones I know everyone's name on our team. I mean, every other interview I've done on this podcast is a mystery to me. Yeah. So I hope that the community, you've been able to learn alongside me what leaders in DPS are doing every day. In our next episode, we'll be talking to Trina Marcel about operations in DPS. Huge job, lot of departments within that. So we hope you'll join us then. Thanks so much for listening to DPS 101.